Founded on legends of old, Athens was a society predicated on glory, power, and prestige. Passed down from generation to generation, tales from great poets and playwrights such as Homer and Euripides enthused Athenian society. However, Athens did not have the resources needed to dominate trade as the Corinthians did, nor the battle-hardened soldiers that fueled Sparta's aggressive expansionism. Yet, the importance of achievement and succession was maintained, but cultivated a culture rife with severe inequality. Common people spent their lives toiling to sustain their society and the apathetic ruling class. That was until an aristocrat, seeking to etch his name in legend, capitalized on a revolution and ushered in the age that shaped civilization as we know it today. The Athenian political structure developed in three phases: oligarchy, limited democracy, and a brief period of tyranny before becoming the democracy it is known for today. In the 7th century BC, the Areopagus, a council of the most powerful families within the Athenian nobility, governed Athens. The council was responsible for appointing the Basileus, Athens' spiritual and ceremonial leader, the Polemarch, Athens' commander-in-chief, the eponymous archon, Athens' chief magistrate, and the 6 junior archons. The right to govern was the prerogative of the Athenian class of nobles. The plight of their subjects was not their concern. The centralized power and constant infighting between the ruling families caused government shutdowns that crippled the Athenians. The inopportune geography of the city-state and its gate-kept agricultural industry eroded the lives of the non-elite further. Aristotle said, "The whole country was in the hands of a few persons, but the hardest and bitterest part of the constitution in the eyes of the masses was their state of serfdom. To speak generally, they had no part nor share in anything." In 594 BC, after a prolonged government shutdown threatened to destroy the economy, the Areopagus elected Solon as eponymous archon, in hopes that his reforms would cease political gridlock. Solon believed that if he could involve regular Athenian citizens in the political process, indecision and infighting within the Areopagus would be incapable of causing any further damage to the city-state. His constitution stripped all legislative and executive power from the Areopagus and reformed the Athenian class structure. Solon organized all Athenian citizens into 4 wealth-based classes. Aristotle described this as a timocracy. Only the wealthy class were able to hold magistrate positions. Then, Solon established an assembly open to all male Athenian citizens called the Ecclesia. The Ecclesia, also known as a General Assembly, held an executive vote on all proposals related to Athens' governance. Next, he established a council of 100 appointees from each of the 4 classes, called the Bull. The Bull was responsible for managing the proposals presented to the Ecclesia, but the Bull was only open to the wealthiest class. The Basileus, Polemarch, eponymous archon, and 6 junior archons were randomly selected from appointees elected by the people. Although the elections were random, common Athenians could not run for office. They could only elect wealthy candidates. The last of Solon's reforms was to offer citizenship to all foreign-born professionals. Athens' coastal population bolstered as a result. The influx in migration encouraged trade and stimulated the Athenian economy. The Solonian constitution set the precedent for radical change, but the catalyst for the Athenian democratic revolution was tyranny. Despite the reforms made to the Athenian constitution, in 567 BC, Pisistratus, a distant relative of Solon, seized control of the city. He rode into Athens with a tall and beautiful woman beside him, whom he claimed was Athena, the patron goddess of Athens. The Athenians, gripped by the mythical tales of gods and heroes, welcomed Pisistratus as their ruler. He was a cunning man. He realized to maintain control and consolidate his rule, he would need the support of the people. Thus, he undermined the political structure to reduce taxes and provide free loans for all Athenian citizens. Pisistratus had given the people the means to take command of their lives, and through these edicts, he strengthened their agricultural and artisan industries. Athens' proximity to the Mediterranean yielded the opportunity to thrive through the trade of their now bustling agricultural and artisan produce. Under a tyrant, Athens began to develop, and Athenians tasted prosperity. After 34 years of benevolent tyranny, Pisistratus' rule came to an end. In 527 BC, he died at 81 years of age and was buried in Athens. His son, Hippias, succeeded him. Initially, Hippias followed in his father's footsteps until his brother was murdered in 514 BC. Hippias not only executed the murderers, but he fatally tortured one of their wives. Aristotle marks this event as Hippias' descent into madness. After this, it began to come about that the tyranny was much harsher, for Hippias' numerous executions and sentences of exile in revenge for his brother led to him becoming suspicious of everyone and embittered. Hippias then stripped away the freedoms his father had given to the Athenian people. Cleisthenes, who came of age during Pisistratus' reign, organized a conspiracy to overthrow Hippias as tensions rose. A natural-born aristocrat, Cleisthenes was invigorated by the epic myths and tales. He saw this as his opportunity to etch his name in legend. In the year 510 BC, with the help of Sparta, Cleisthenes and the Athenian people overthrew and exiled Hippias. However, Isagoras, one of Cleisthenes' co-conspirators, sought to take control for himself. Cleomenes I, the king of Sparta, instated Isagoras as a ruler of Athens. In exchange, Isagoras would turn Athens into a subject state of Sparta. To ensure this, Isagoras exiled all who would challenge him, including Cleisthenes. However, the Athenian people, now accustomed to the flourishing meritocracy their society had become, would not give up their freedoms so easily. The tensions in Athens was now palpable. Isagoras barricaded the Acropolis and turned it into a stronghold. For 2 days and nights, the Athenian people laid siege to it, and on the third day, Isagoras was forced to surrender. The Athenians, now free but without a leader, recalled Cleisthenes, and after assuming leadership, he began working on sweeping reforms. In 508 BC, Cleisthenes overhauled the class system. In place of the 4 wealth-based classes, Cleisthenes instated 10 tribes that equally represented each of the 3 political factions: the Hills faction, which were the urban poor, the Plains faction, which were the countryside wealthy, and the Coast faction, which were the merchants and traders. The 10 tribes were subdivided into 139 demes. These demes represented small villages within the territories of the 3 factions. Each deme had an elected leader called a demarch and a council. The demarch and his council could pass bylaws and find ways to raise revenue autonomously. In essence, Athenians were finally able to govern themselves. Political gridlock was impossible. Next, Cleisthenes restructured the bull. He increased the maximum number of members to 500, and each of the 10 tribes got to elect their representatives through localized elections. Then 50 would be selected, at random, from each tribe to serve 1-year terms. Citizens could only serve twice, with a mandatory 10-year gap in between. This new system guaranteed any ambitious male citizen a fair shot at attaining office, with no institutional bias towards the wealthy. Subsequently, Cleisthenes established the Prytaneus, an executive committee within the bull. They maintained the day-to-day operations of the city-state. They also enacted the rulings of the bull and hosted foreign delegates. Members of the Prytaneus alternated year-round, which allowed all members of the bull to serve in it. The ecclesia remained unchanged. All male Athenian citizens in the assembly still held the executive vote on all proposals, but the bull became the central power of Athenian politics, while the Basileus, Polemarch, Eponymous Archon, and 6 junior archons became powerless. To enact, lead, and maintain the Athenian army and navy, each tribe elected a general called a strategos. Together, the 10 formed the strategoi, and only served 1-year terms unless extended by the people in times of war. Cleisthenes designed this new political system to ensure Athens would not devolve into the factionalism and bias that plagued them for generations. Another measure implemented by his constitution was ostracism. Once a year, the Athenian people could vote to ostracize anyone for 10 years, and if a single person had over 6,000 votes, they were ostracized. Despite the raw nature of ostracism, it was effective in deterring strongmen and tyrants. Through all this, direct democracy was born. For the first time in history, Athenians, common and rich alike, determined the affairs of their state. From a modest village atop a hill, Athens swelled into a global economic and cultural powerhouse. Where nations were led by the tip of the sword, Cleisthenes pioneered the rule of the people. He shaped civilization as we know it today, and cemented his place amongst the heroes he once admired.